They're using like built-in social conditioning and pre-existing resentment towards marginalized populations, black people, brown people, and they're dangling that as red meat in front of your eyes, so you actually forget that you're being robbed blind. You're being robbed blind every day. Like, there is no reason for the wealthiest nation on earth to not be able to provide healthcare to every single human being unconditionally. No reason whatsoever. They've sold us a bad bill over and over again.
That's exactly right.
It's simply to soothe the interests of like some of the most radical elements in American society, and it's just dangling this stuff, the white nativist sentiment, in front of them, so that they forget that like they don't have a house.
That's all well and good, but people don't call that out enough.
Yeah.
No,
people don't call it out enough, right?
Well,
we keep talking about like,
that's why they yell at me all the time.
But that's why
you're an individual. Let's be real. Everything that we talked about, right? Every single impediment we have is very real. Republicans don't get the smoke that we do because we don't give it to them. Yep. Right? We don't have standards for them. Anytime that there is a barrier that comes up, it's actually just not an excuse for us to give up, right? Republicans have won on narrative and messaging. Yeah. And we have to be just as persistent, right?
Because they take no prisoners.
Yeah, no, precisely. Yeah. But we have to be just as persistent. I mean, I think the question right now, when we're in the middle of authoritarianism, is: do we want this worse, better than Republicans do, or than MAGA does, or than whoever these fascists are? Do we want to build what comes next just as much as they do? And we prove that not through our tweets. We don't prove that through our comment sections. We don't prove it. We prove it by actually doing it. Yeah. And there are so many different ways that you can do it. And actually, it is a responsibility of all of us. So even as we talk about whatever your lane is, right? We talk about electoralism. Is electoralism a real lane? Right? Is, organizing, right? Should it be organizing? Should it be labor unions? It's
narrative creation.
But it's actually each and every one of those things. Yes. Whatever your lane is, you still need to take in the responsibility of actually changing this.
Yep.
No, absolutely. Yep.
And like now more than ever, right? Whatever the impediment is, we need to be on top of it. And sometimes our impediment to progress actually isn't as sometimes it's incredibly structural.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's
a matter of will.
Sometimes it's very flimsy.
And it's also like being willing to do multiple things. So like, at the end of the day, people play this game with us all the time, right? I'm sure you've gotten it, Summer, I got it. It's like, well, here's this one thing that Hassan said. Do you now condemn him and everything he stands for? And I'm like, in what world does the world work this way? Like, in what world would you condemn somebody for something that they've said if you're serious about the project of actually persuading somebody? Because the last time I checked, if you actually want to persuade somebody, you would go and have a conversation with people you might disagree with, and all of the people they talk to, and talk about, all right, here's how I see it, how do you see it? The problem is, though, Democrats have actually given up on the idea of persuading. I think we don't actually believe in what it is that we're about. And too often, folks see this as a team red versus team blue. Team blue's got to win, but part of me is like, what are you winning team blue for?
I also think that we use categories too much. Like Democrats don't believe this, right? Republicans don't believe that. I think that there are tons of Democrats, tons of everyday people, from various. I think that we keep trying to fit people into this like you're left or you're right or you're middle, right? And people actually don't orient themselves that way. I think that there are people all over this country that care very deeply about a whole bunch of things, and they're genuinely and earnestly trying to figure out like how can they move the needle. They actually don't care about a whole bunch of the banter. They don't really care about a lot of this discourse, this conversation. The news cycle is not putting food on their table. What they're trying to figure out is who takes this seriously enough, and then how can they then align with that, right? Yeah. But we have to give them that reason to. I'll tell you one thing. Listen, I'm a black woman in America. People ask me to reject things all the time. They ask me to condemn people who I've never met. They ask me to condemn people who I've never had any connection to. Like, it's a thing. I'm very used to it. I will say that I became a state rep I ran in 2018, right? That's the first time I ever ran for office. In that time, I've run every 2 years. I have never once done a negative campaign. Unless ever asked about an opponent, I do not smear my opponents. I don't evoke them. I don't talk about them, because I think that what we need to demonstrate is that politics is a neutral, can be a neutral thing. Right?
It can be about what you're for.
It's not inherently evil. Yeah. And if no one is demonstrating what politics are for, you miss that. So people we're in a condemned culture because people are they know that negative politics is such a wedge. You know why it's a wedge?
I love that point.
Because it disenfranchises people. Right? Back in the day, they used to be able to just literally write into a law that you cannot vote because you're black. You cannot vote because you're a woman. They can't do that as easily anymore. But what they can do is they can run you out using the tactics that they know work. Negative politics always run people out of elections.
I love that.
Because what they learn is that it doesn't work. As soon as somebody goes negative, you push back, they punch back, you punch back, and the conversation is no longer what we can accomplish collectively. It's no longer like, what will you do? What are you building? It is now what my opponent isn't, what they won't do. So I don't spend all of my time focusing on the negatives of other people, because other people will bring it up. Yeah. I try to spend my time on like what we are here to build, which I believe very deeply in.
Yeah, politics by inclusion rather than politics by exclusion. I think, you know, at the end of the day, also we take this idea of politics as being a competition between, and the more I've realized is that, like, I'm running statewide in a gigantic state, 10 million people, and I want people to know me warts and all. That's it. Like, my job is to build a relationship with folks where you know what I'm gonna think and what I'm gonna say, because I told you what my beliefs are, and that you can predict based on what my beliefs are what I'm gonna do.
What you gonna do?
Yeah, and like at the end of the day, if that includes solving your problems, making sure you can afford a home, making sure that you're not caught up in gobs and gobs of debt, making sure your kid's school is a dignified place for you to go to, make sure you have healthcare when you need it.
On earth.
Yes, like if folks understand like that I am going to show up for those fights every single time, then that's what I got to do. Now, if folks choose that that's not what they want, okay. But
also it's not just your fight.
That's right. It's all of
inherently, right? We are representatives.
Yeah.
Like, that's why I've not run for an executive position, right? We're representatives, which means that like we can tell you what direction we want to go, and we can learn from our people, right? Because representatives. We learn from our people what they want, what they need. I think I have a pretty good grasp on what people in Western Pennsylvania.
Well, I think the people in Western Pennsylvania have said so.
People in Western Pennsylvania have said so.
The last 8 years, right?
Right. My job is to go there and fight for that.
That's right.
Not alone. Right. It is not to be alone. It is. I might be alone when I go into the House floor. Yeah. But that should be the only place where we're alone. That's right. When we go into the House floor. Any other time, we should be with people. People should be with us. Like, we don't win by just electing people and sending them away.
This kind of stuff, like even the conversation around Israel has shown once again that, especially now, like, people are willing to reward those who demonstrate moral courage at times when others wouldn't, right? I don't even understand how the large majority of the party have not launched an opposition to what Donald Trump is doing, both in Iran, but also opposition towards the current relationship that we have with Israel that needs to be re-examined and needs to change, especially because it's a 90-10 issue in the base for the Democrats. And it's like almost an 80-20 issue for independents as well. Even Republicans are actually questioning this unlimited support that we have at a time when Israel has displaced another 1 million people in southern Lebanon. I mean, they're getting ready to annex southern Lebanon. Yeah, that was always the worry. And they're also literally saying they're demanding in southern Lebanese villages. The Israeli government has openly said they're going to turn. And they're going to southern villages in Lebanon that have, you know, their Christian villages and the non-Shia villages, and demanding that they reveal if they have Shia Muslims in those villages they're sheltering. This is exactly what happened in the Holocaust when Germany occupied all these other countries. It's unbelievable that, like, we can't call into question the actions of our supposedly foreign ally that we're giving unlimited weapons support to at a time when Americans are suffering here. It's unbelievable. We're also torching, what, $1.5 billion a day? Yeah. In a war that nobody wanted except for Benjamin Netanyahu, and he finally found somebody enough to go fight it. I mean,
what can we do with $1.5 billion a day in Michigan? I
mean, here's the crazy thing. I mean,
I'm gonna fight for it to come to Pennsylvania, but like, what can we do?
Israel bombed a synagogue in Tehran yesterday. They bombed a synagogue. And they came out and they were like, "Oh, sorry, it was collateral damage." Like, it's unbearable. The inconsistency. I mean, there is a long history of Sephardic Jewish folk in Iran. You're talking about, like, long range Jewish history being destroyed for thousands of years. And that's the other part of this. Like, I just want to be like absolutely clear about. At the end of the day, right? I think all of us have been extremely clear that when it comes to standing with the Jewish people, when it comes to uplifting and empowering Judaism, right? Like, nobody understands how important that is, right? As somebody who's been discriminated against. All three of us. Like, you're a Muslim man in America.
If anti-Semitism exists, so too does Islamophobia.
Yes, and
so
always run together. Yes.
They are never far apart. Yeah. Which is why to abide one is to welcome the others. Yes, and that's the thing. And I will never do it. Against genocide is the same reason we stand up to fight anti-Semitism, because you care about people and all of their forms. But, like, this notion somehow that anti-Semitism and the definition of it can be pulled when it comes to defending Israel
but that if somebody critiques Israel, right, that somehow is impossible to do without being anti-Semitic. That to me, like, we have to address that. Like when the ADL came after us, I was just like, come on, man, please stop doing this. It's dangerous. It's dangerous.
We don't talk about it, but like, I mean, this happened with Zoran too. It's just racist. Like it is so Islamophobic to be like, oh, this guy who has spent his entire, like, I spent my entire professional media career combating anti-Semitism. It's part of the reason why a lot of neo-Nazis me. They've doxed me, they've swatted me, they've come after myself and my family for years, right? And I've never shied away from fighting against anti-Semitism, as I do all forms of bigotry. So it's unbelievably cynical to launder these kinds of smears, specifically because of my avowed anti-Zionist principled stance against genocide, principled stance against fascism, no matter which form it takes. And it is just like with Zoran, he's like unbelievably careful, unbelievably conciliatory. He is so empathetic in his language and the way that he communicates on. Still smear him endlessly, where they're like, oh, he's an anti-Semite. At a certain point, you have to realize, like, yeah, it's a lot of pro-Israel people. A lot of people who are pro-Israel are very Islamophobic. The ideology requires you to dehumanize Muslims in general, like, and this is what it is. So if a Christian nationalist, a white nationalist, comes out and says, oh, a black elected is going to take away my way of existence, my way of life, we don't sit around and think about that endlessly. We don't turn around and say, oh, well, maybe this person has a valid concern. So it's ridiculous to like pin these marginalized communities against one another.
Yes, that's right.
Actually, you know what? You're right.
Yeah. Too often we do. Yeah.
I think people forget that all the time.
I'm saying,
every
like,
day
in this
I
like,
experience
but I mean,
and it's
like,
okay to say that. I think that oftentimes we're trying to compare it as like, if this was a black person, or if this was a that person, if this was a that person, we would never get away with it. And it's because we live in silos and we don't live other people's experiences.
You're right.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. Actually, what I meant is like, broadly, I think like liberals
and also
in general, like broadly liberals in general, like kind of understand if there's like an avowed, anti-black candidate that's like demonstrating anti-blackness in that way. Like most people are like, liberals at least will be like, wait a minute, like why are you saying this, right? Even though, of course, anti-blackness is a fundamental principle of American politics. That's what I was trying to say in a way where like a lot of liberals. I saw a post that
somebody was just like, yeah, it's like bad. The president has done like anti-black things too. It was like he tried to get monuments removed in Philadelphia, which is like terrible, obviously. Like but also, if you took a year's worth of Donald Trump's policy just in this term, and the thing that you can say is the most anti-black thing he did was that, it's because people don't recognize that like structural racism is violent too, right? Structural racism might not be, someone with a gun to your head. It might not be, it's not a bomb to your church in Birmingham anymore, although it has been that in times. But it is structural. Like if black women don't have jobs, that's actually violence because how do you go to the doctor, right? That's a real thing, right? If black folks and I don't even talk about anybody else,
but like, do you remember when Ronald Reagan and Richard Nixon's conversations were like unearthed a couple years ago? I think it was in Trump 1, where Ronald Reagan had said some heinous things about like African diplomats.
Oh my God.
and liberals were like, oh my God, I can't believe Ronald Reagan is anti-black. And I was like, this is how you realize, like, a lot of people are so optics focused.
Yes.
You're absolutely right.
And that's why it's like
they're
white
focused on the
hood,
optics.
like burning cross.
They need to hear
it's politics as symbol.
But that's also why people struggle with anti-Muslim hate right now.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't manifest like a white hood, and a burning cross.
Until it does.
Until it does. Yeah. Dehumanization of people, you'll see a genocide following.
Yeah.
All the time. Which is why history, whether that history be the history of chattel slavery, history of the Holocaust, or the history post 9/11, right? We should recognize that when people are able to en masse just like dehumanize people, that I expect that we are about to commit atrocities against them, because that's what fascists, that's what evil people do, right? They desensitize people to the humanity of the folks who they want to then conquer, the folks who they want to subjugate. And I just want in 2026 for us to take a beat and see that for what it is, right? We have watched in Gaza just like dehumanization of Palestinian people. I see it often. And I still don't see American politics willing to talk about
reckon with
this
it.
way,
Well,
right?
I
Willing
mean,
to talk about it that way.
This whole
and their family members,
and they're now
that live
doing
here.
it in Iran, and we will do it elsewhere. We've already done it in Sudan, right? Talk about a genocide there. People can't talk about the Congo because we've already long since dehumanized Afro-descended people, right? We're doing that more, and I do expect the Democratic Party to speak out against that. I do, because I do because right, black people, we have learned by the sword like what it means to live and die for rights, not just for us, but for everybody, right? To know that we cannot go to the Republican Party. There is no house, there is no home for us, right? Yeah. But in this home, I want this home to be structurally sound. I want this home, right, to keep us warm, to do all the things that it needs to do for us. And I have greater expectations of the Democratic Party than I have for the Republican Party that I don't care for, right? I don't need the Republican Party to get their shit together because I'm not rooting for them,
when
right?
you say your values
I'm not
are about,
rooting for them.
When you say your values are about uplifting and empowering all people, then that means you got to uplift and empower all people.
And come hard. I will force that. And listen, I've been called all type of things. I think everybody in this van, we've all been called very many things, and that's okay. And at the end of the day, though, I will still stand up for marginalized people wherever they exist. I will still stand against all forms of hate, and in doing so, I will not allow some people who are very reasonably scared, afraid, all that, and some people who are weaponized. I will not allow either of them to stop us from being able to build together forward. Right? We're not gonna. Our coalition is not going to exist if we tiptoe around each other in that way.
And
so
the thing
let's talk about it.
that's clear in what you're saying is that's not out of. This is what they always try to weaponize. That if you want the good things for people who don't have them, it's not because out of any hatred for people who do have them. It's out of love for everybody and the folks who don't have them, right? It's not that hard to build in America where everybody gets healthcare. It's not that hard to build in America where everybody has a good job.
That brings us back to our real opposition, the real ops, guys. The real ops, these corporations.
Yep. I mean, at the end of the day, it's like
super PACs.
If one group's greed is built on the notion that not everybody can have
anything, some people have nothing. Some people have nothing. And then the common denominator in Trump's administration, the first one and the second one, is him and the people he likes getting richer and richer and richer, and your gas prices getting higher and higher and higher. Higher and higher and higher.
Your life is getting siphoned for his greed.
For his greed. And if I could, don't get me wrong, it is very hard to build with somebody who doesn't see me as a whole human being, and I'm never going to excuse somebody for feeling that way. But also, I do need people to know that Donald Trump, MAGA, all these corporate donors, these people are like, they're playing you.
Yeah, they don't see you. They don't see you as a human being either. They don't. And they're using like built-in social conditioning and pre-existing resentment towards marginalized populations, black people, brown people, and they're dangling that as red meat in front of your eyes, so you actually forget that you're being robbed blind. You're being robbed blind every day. Like, there is no reason for the wealthiest nation on earth to not be able to provide healthcare to every single human being unconditionally. No reason whatsoever. They've sold us a bad bill over and over again.
Well, how's the CEO of the insurance company going to make $18 million?
What?
How's the CEO of the insurance company going to make $18 million?
Exactly.
Honestly, he'll still make some money.
It's always parasitic forces of capital, faceless, lifeless, shareholder value that we care about, that we place in front of the needs of American citizens. That's why I always say, like, when people yell at me, when people come into my chat to yell at me, they're like, oh, you're an Islamic fundamentalist, terrorist, whatever, which is really funny because I'm also the most woke, right? I'm always like, look, man, you say all this stuff, but I'm still gonna fight so that you get health care. Right?
Also, I love that when people are like, you're an Islamo-communist. I'm like, listen, man, you one is either an Islamist or a communist. You can't be both. Like, you gotta pick which one you think he is.
That's like there's also such a European line too. The Islamo-Gauchism is like, that's like a very, we're trying to import European style.
We should import European style healthcare. Let's do that one. But yeah, to be very real though, those those tensions, the little resentment that you talk about, there is a strain of us, sometimes too often even on the left, that doesn't want to address that either. right?
Yeah.
And let me tell you something. If we don't do something about this resentment in this country, it is our country's greatest weakness, right? We have with Donald Trump in office, we have a number of weaknesses, right? But that right there, it is the easiest thing for another country to manipulate us. They can't march, they can't bring troops into the United States. They can't reach us. They can't out-arms race us right now. But what they can do is they can tap into our natural fissures, and that is our race relations, right?
Exactly
that is the resentment that we have between poor people and the haves and the have-not. Those resentments really actually are keeping us from building this better world that we really have an obligation to build. And it's important to not just brush that aside.
To the question that you asked about healthcare, right? You know the number of times I get people who are like, yeah, but I don't want my dollars going to somebody else's healthcare. You're like, but what if their dollars come to yours?
Rugged individualism.
Yeah. Half about racial resentments about who deserves to get healthcare.
Oh yeah,
and it's just
why don't we have these social programs that other places have? I'm gonna leave it there.
Yeah, no, it's been
which is why we need to do something about racism.
It's an incredibly successful way to divide the working class. It worked in the Reconstruction era, and it certainly worked when Reagan and Reaganomics was running amok in this country. Democrats were so conciliatory towards that as well. What?
It also worked with Roosevelt.
Yeah, no, absolutely.